A cashless society is upon us. The monetary system is changing to a more controlled, trackable, traceable, unforgiving system filled with glitches and lockouts. The technocratic elite have been pushing very hard for years to create this, and with technological advancements, it is becoming a reality. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Let's get into the cashless society today, talk about how it has been inching closer and closer towards us, and we can see how they've implemented it right now, today. Let's begin with everyone's favorite, Janet Yellen. That's right, the Federal Reserve Chair, Janet Yellen, said she strongly opposes a legislative reform act to the central bank. That's right, any sort of reforms to the Federal Reserve is bad, but not bad for you and I, but of course bad for the Federal Reserve, saying it's actually a grave mistake. That's right. It is a little bit silly, but I'd like to read this type of information. It is comic relief for myself, and I'm sure you as well. Unfortunately, and I like how they throw that in there, unfortunately, the Form Act, and this is what I want to highlight here, attempts to increase transparency and accountability, hold on to that thought, through misguided provisions that would expose the Federal Reserve to short-term political pressures. Yes, that's right. If the Congress knew what you were going to do, they're going to start asking questions. And that's the way it's supposed to be. The bill would severely impair the Federal Reserve's ability to carry out its congressional mandate, always throwing that out there, and would be a grave mistake and detrimental to the economy and the American people. The White House on Tuesday issued a veto threat for the bill because it said the proposal would politicize the Federal Reserve's monetary policy decisions. Okay, right away I want to get to the highlighted point where they say it's going to increase transparency and accountability. That is exactly what we need. We didn't have any transparency or accountability during the financial crisis and prior to that, and lo and behold, what happened? They printed at least $16 trillion, gave it to institutions all around the world. When they said they had to increase a little bit of transparency, they said, what are you, crazy? They said no. They said, who did you give this money to? And they said, we're not telling. That's literally a fact. That's what they said. We're not going to tell you who we gave it to. Absolutely absurd. And then when they try to impose a little bit of regulation on them, a little bit of these, transparency, they say, no, this is crazy. No, you're not going to do that. Anyway, let's move on. The next generation of children born in Britain will, quote, not know what money is. That's Tim Cook, the Apple boss. He's saying that, of course, there's not going to be a need for cash. That's what he's talking about. The chief executive of the technology giant forecasts the death of cash by the time the current university students have a family. It could happen a lot sooner than that, depending on where you live. But they say cash is still used for more than half of the payments by consumers. But popularity is falling as people switch to cards and smartphone apps such as Apple Pay and Google Wallet. You could see a lot of people using their credit cards versus cash as well. What I find is that using your credit cards, using a system like Apple Pay is very convenient. It offers many benefits. But at the same time, you still want cash to be available. You still want to have that system available to you. If you and I want to transact and not have any watchful eyes, not want to have to necessarily involve a third party at all. Why is it anybody else's business but you and I if we want to transact between each other? That's what cash is excellent for. But they want to get away with that system. Let's look at this. Hard to read probably for you guys. This font is quite small, but it is a very important article talking about the cashless society. I'll put it in the description below as always. This is out of the Financial Post. Sweden is shaping up to be the first country to plunge its citizens into a fascinating and terrifying economic experiment. Negative interest rates and a cashless society. We're looking at this. The Swedish central bank held its benchmark rate at minus 0.35% today. It's been there since July. Now, I have many subscribers from Sweden who tell me about the situation there firsthand, and I hope we can get a few comments from those individuals today. Although retail banks have yet to pass on that negative to rate to the Swedish consumers, the longer it's held there, the more the financial pressure there is for banks to pass the cost on to their consumers. That's a problem because Sweden is the closest country on the planet to becoming an all-electronic cashless society. Not quite there, but getting very close. Remember, Sweden is a place where if you use too much cash, banks call the police because they think you're a terrorist or a criminal. They started removing cash from the ATMs. Credit Suisse said the rule of thumb in Scandinavia is if you have to pay in cash, something is wrong. That's the type of policies that are being implemented, not just in Sweden, but all around the world. You want to take cash out of your bank. I want to have some comments from people, if possible. I have this situation for myself as well, here in Toronto, in Canada. You try to take a bunch of money out. You try to remove your contents from your safety deposit box. They start asking questions. What are you going to do with it? And they try to make it seem, like it's all, just make a conversation. What are you doing with that money? And, you have a right to tell them nothing. You can keep silent. You can tell them if you feel like it, but ultimately, this is all part of this new tattletale system. So it is a concern of mine. This is the Cashless Society. They want to hand in everything. Now look at this right here. Government adds record $339 billion to the debt in the first day after the budget deal. Does that surprise anybody? Doesn't surprise me, that's for sure. Now, when we look at debt that is being created by the government, we can see all the basically the public works projects that have taken place. We don't have to look at QE. We don't have to look at, let's say, negative or low interest rates. We can look at the other types of implementations that they've tried, one of them being cash for clunkers. In my book, I wrote about it, how it was a foolish program that really was trying to keep the car industry afloat, but Cash for Clunkers was a $3 billion taxpayer-funded program. Even Alan Greenspan, which you can consider him a mouthpiece for the Federal Reserve, said that didn't help to fix the economy. It doesn't take a former Fed chairman to say that. You can just look at the numbers. And this is the serious economic indicators that we need to be looking at. LA Council declares shelter crisis and effort to help the homeless. We can see that, I believe it says 26,000 people in LA live on the streets. Is that not an alarm to some people? You should have these alarm bells going off right now, but it's simply not. We need to understand that homelessness, poverty, food stamps, these are all real economic indicators. It's spreading like wildfire and it's getting worse. So keep your eyes on this. And in some other news I want to discuss briefly, gold. The summer market mayhem caused Americans to buy gold bars and coins at levels unseen since the financial crisis. When people are scared about the economy, they rush to gold. Recent months, we had gold bars and coins surging 207% in the third quarter, the World Gold Council said. Some people don't like gold. I believe that anything real should be part of your portfolio as you have the ability to afford it. I do not agree with a 100% precious metals portfolio. I think that is silly. We can get into other things, and there are, I believe, even more important things, such as a simple supply of food, whether that's having a garden, storable food, having a water filter, things like this. Have some gold, have some silver. I think it's essential to have these things. But I wouldn't have any of my money in 100% in one thing. I believe it is too dangerous because of the ability to manipulate. But I'll say this again, I'll clarify that I do believe, as I said in my book, I'm still on record saying this, that precious metals are excellent because of their ability to store wealth over a long period of time. But it's just one piece of the puzzle. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up. Last but not least, if you found the video informative, I know you'll find my book, The Money GPS, even more informative. You can actually flip through the book. If you go over to Amazon, they have a look inside feature, which allows you to flip through the pages of the book and see if you like it. Take care.